Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Land Title Talk, where we encourage you to call in with your, well, we're not going to say call in. How about we say text in your real estate related questions or comments at 904-501-4481. Again, that's 904-501-4481. I'm Steve Collins from Land Title of America, and with me I have Rusty Collins from Rusty Law, and we have Ben Jackoby as our special guest from Rusty Law. So we're glad to have him here, and always, we're going to have Blake and Julie keeping us in line. So we look forward to your questions or comments. This is surreal, Rusty. It's been a little while since we've done this.
It's been a while since we've been together on any kind of a show.
It was fun. We used to have Land Title Talk. Gosh, we did it for, I don't know how many years we did it. 5, 6?
We did it, then we had a break, and then we started up again.
I think that's like 5 or 6 years we did that or something. It was a lot of fun. We really enjoyed it, and we wanted to get back to it. We had fun addressing questions that people may have about real estate law or real estate in general. We have some special guests that we'll have on from time to time that we can address questions to. So it's been really fun. But we brought the expert of all experts, and that's Ben Jackoby. Right, Ben?
Yes, sir. Here with Rusty to give me the tips.
Awesome. Ben actually works with Rusty, so we're glad that he's here. Rusty, what's going on in your world?
The list is long and interesting.
Which means nothing.
Well, the worst kinds of lawsuits are like family lawsuits,
Mm-hmm.
When one person's suing another, and the other worst type of lawsuit is between neighbors. I've had way too much of neighbors recently. And actually, we had a trial last Wednesday about neighbors. And it'd be interesting to talk about that in a little bit.
So we're not going to be able to talk about it yet.
We can talk. No, I'm talking about. We can talk later on today or tonight.
Talk about it now.
Okay.
You know me. I got a long list of things for you, but I'll let you go first because then I may never let you talk.
Okay. Well, what is your definition of a nuisance?
I was going to say my older brother Rusty.
Okay. What about if you have your property and your neighbor's doing something on their property, what could be a nuisance?
I mean, you could have loud noises. You could have a dog that's a nuisance. I went to go visit my mother-in-law in California, and the property lines are pretty tight, and the houses are pretty tight, and the dog is a Doberman Pinscher, if I say that right. And every time you try to walk into the house, that dog is up in your grill barking his head off. That's a nuisance. I mean, things like that.
Well, there's actually a legal definition, which is doing something on your property that is not a use that bothers other people.
Well, my band could be considered that when we practice at night.
Well, I remember a good while back, we used to practice in Wildwood Creek and
at Mike's house.
At our brother Mike's house. And of course, I was playing bass at the time, and bass goes forever.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a few knocks on the door of the big garage.
Yeah, from the police
from the
officers.
Law enforcement, yeah.
Yeah, but they never shut us down. They always said that, we had a neighbor call in, but there was nothing wrong or illegal about it.
Right. Well, there are noise ordinances and stuff like that, but what if you're doing something that's perfectly legal? Can that be a nuisance?
Can it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, you think about the problem is anything that interferes with a neighbor's enjoyment of their property.
Yeah, but that can be so loaded though, Rusty, because what I consider to be peace and quiet is different from somebody else. I mean, how do you gauge that? That's pretty hard.
Well, you gauge it using a normal person standard, not a psychopath standard.
Oh, would that be me?
No,
Okay.
I'm just saying you use it's a reasonable person standard.
Okay.
So, if you're doing something, let's say you have a little business going on at your property that's legal. Okay. But the business gets conducted at night sometimes.
Okay.
And you have to light up your yard a little bit.
Okay.
And the light maybe the neighbor doesn't like the light.
There's nothing illegal about that.
It's not illegal.
No.
Is it a nuisance?
I guess it could be deemed a nuisance.
It could be.
Yeah.
That's right.
I don't think that I mean, that's a great question.
We're talking about private nuisances, not public nuisances.
Of course.
So how about this? You have a pig processing plant, and then a subdivision opens up a pig processing plant. It's not going to smell good. It's going to have some interesting noises.
Oh, a pig processing plant.
Okay. Sorry.
Did you hear pig?
I wasn't sure what he said.
Okay.
I heard paint.
And then
I'm glad I wasn't the only one that didn't hear that clearly. I'm like, what are you talking about?
And then they build a subdivision up next to it.
Okay.
And then the subdivision says that pig processing plant is a nuisance. Or if you've got a property that causes vibrations into the land, and it's ongoing with the process of whatever it is they're doing over there, it's legal, but it's causing vibrations, and those vibrations have an effect on the neighbor. These are all things that can become a private nuisance. So what if you have neighbors that share a 500-foot fence line, property line, and maybe one of the neighbors is crazy?
Rusty, what if you have someone who flies drones? Your neighbor.
You can fly a drone.
Is that legal?
Yeah.
Could that be a nuisance?
Well, it depends on what you're doing with it, yeah.
I know there's that story about that guy in South Florida that shot that drone and got arrested.
That's right. You can't shoot at a drone. It is an aircraft.
Okay, but if it's over your house.
It is an aircraft.
Yes, but what if you're using that drone to videotape things you ought not to be videotaping?
It is an aircraft. You can make that argument from jail.
Can I throw a rock at it?
I wouldn't do that.
That's interesting.
You can say that there's a problem.
Okay.
You can say that you can call local authorities and say this person's hovering over my property in the middle of the daytime when I've put up screens to maybe sunbathe. It's what you own from your property line straight up into the heavens. Okay.
Right.
But aircraft have the right to fly over that.
We had someone text in and say that, a burn pit out of control could be a nuisance.
A burn pit can be a nuisance. Yeah. And I know where that message came from. Okay.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. I'm glad you do.
Well, okay. So a case in Clay County, the property owner, a person moves in, the neighbor has a 500-foot fence line that they share. Mm-hmm. It's a wire fence. And
so it's not a privacy fence.
That wasn't a privacy fence, no. But because the one neighbor is going to teach children baseball skills at night, sometimes at night because he has a day job too, he puts up some lights that light up his property, and they're not anything special. They're just 300-watt lights. Okay.
But I actually have one of those in my house my house. So at the end of band practice, after we've annoyed the neighbors with noise, we can then annoy them with my big old, 300-watt light to make sure people don't trip over my equipment as they get to their vehicles.
Right. So, anyhow, several years ago, the one neighbor is putting up the lights, and they don't really like how the other property looks very much, so they actually put up a privacy fence.
Which neighbor? The light neighbor or the
light neighbor?
Oh, okay.
Light neighbor put up an 8-foot fence.
Okay, that was nice.
It goes up in sections. Okay. It didn't happen all at once, but it's 500 feet long, and in some places it's wooden, and some areas they actually have some extensions for other reasons. But now, the neighbor likes to record everything, so there are several.
The light neighbor or the non-light? Okay, the other neighbor. Okay.
Well, both neighbors probably have too many cameras pointed at each other. But anyway, so the light neighbor has his lights, and the other neighbor tries to get an injunction using the domestic violence stalking statutes.
Against the lights?
Yeah, because he says it's harassment.
Okay.
And then he also accuses...
So how does that look? Well, I got my lights on. What, the cops come knocking on my door?
They can.
So what happened?
Well, there's other stuff. He says, the non-light neighbor accuses the light neighbor of threatening to punch him in the face, and threatening to kill his dog, stuff like that.
Okay.
Now,
that's not cool.
But Well, would it be okay to say you have a mean dog, and if that dog escapes and comes over and attacks my family, I'm going to shoot it?
Okay.
There's
certain things you don't have to say.
Okay.
But, that's like,
but if that's the threat, okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the point is, they actually get an injunction, temporary injunction against.
But what does the injunction do? For the light to stay off?
It was, well.
Or an injunction to say, be nice. I mean, that just seems ridiculous.
That's just it. Okay. When they have the trial on the injunction, the non-light neighbor loses bad. They get nothing.
What was the injunction for?
Everything they could complain about. They're saying the lights are shining on our property. They're saying that they're making noises.
Okay, so they get the injunction. Does the light neighbor keep the lights off until he goes to court, or does
I don't know that was part of the injunction, but the judge who did it said he was worried because he heard gun, shoot the dog. Okay, so anyway, when that got done, the judge said no, you guys, even if they're bad neighbors, it's not stalking. You don't get the injunction.
Okay, so eventually reason came into play.
Right.
And the judge is like, no, this ain't going to work.
That's in 2023.
Okay.
In January 2024, they file a civil action against the light guy.
Okay.
Okay, using the same basic allegations. Okay.
I don't necessarily have a problem with that, because then you address it civilly.
Well, now we're not worried about a wire fence anymore. We now have a wooden fence. The dog's not getting past the wooden fence. Okay?
Well, you don't know, but I get it.
Okay. But now we have the light guy is doing his stuff with his kids, the people he's training.
The baseball training.
Yeah, they've got like a batting area inside of a pole barn. They have a pitching area. All, the skills. Okay. Right. And but a lot of times when the light guy is doing these skill things, the neighbor next door just loves to burn stuff. Okay, I mean, you're allowed to burn yard debris,
yeah,
but not plastic. And
was he burning plastic and stuff?
Well, the light guy seems to think so. Okay, never get a picture of it. Yeah. Okay, but that's the allegation. But the smoke just comes over to where the light guy's people are practicing, and
but not always.
Well, there's a bunch of evidence of it. Okay.
The wind doesn't always blow west, doesn't always blow east, doesn't it?
Well, it looks like we're always blowing west there. But anyway, but it only happens when the light guy's having classes with his people.
All right.
Okay. So the light guy puts up fans on the fence. Okay. And
I mean, do these guys have lots of money or something?
No.
Okay.
No. Not only that, but the light guy eventually finds out that his Wi-Fi, because he pays over a certain usage, he pays.
Okay.
All of a sudden, his usage goes through the roof.
Did the guy tap into his Wi-Fi?
Can't prove it. Although I do have a picture of where the neighbor's wife's phone is trying to connect to his TV.
All right. So cut to the chase.
Okay. Now, because the non-light guy,
because this is comical to some degree. Where these people are just,
but
nitpicky.
Serious. It does get more serious.
Well, it can get serious. This is how people get shot.
Right.
Okay.
And both of them are armed. Okay.
Well, I have no problem with somebody being armed. Okay, and you protect your own home.
But here's what happens: because the light guy knows he's being recorded. It's like 24/7. It's not like Ring cameras. These are hardwired cameras.
Right.
And he finds that he realizes he's being recorded. He starts playing white noise. Okay. Now we're talking about a white noise coming out of an Alexa speaker that's 6 inches tall.
Okay. White noise can be, or white noise can be, what kind of white noise are you talking about?
Put it this way. I've heard the white noise, and sometimes the cicadas out there are louder. All right.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But of course, anyway, in December, my guy gets arrested for it. For white noise.
But how does he get arrested for white noise, Rusty?
Because it was considered stalking, because they alleged...
What about the cameras on his property?
Well, I understand that. But
I can't imagine somebody coming to my house and arresting me. Obviously, we're battling with a neighbor, right? I mean...
Yes, this is how
at one point you're at your house and a cop shows up and takes him to prison?
Well, the jail.
I mean, the jail, that's what I meant.
Okay. So, but remember, you have to understand harassment is a course of conduct directed at a specific person that causes that person severe emotional
distress. Is that something you agree is arrestable?
Okay.
Do you think that is arrestable? I mean, is that even English? Am I using the right word, arrestable? Is that even a word?
Now.
It's a word now.
It's a word for the next hour.
The light guy, no. But here's what was alleged. Okay, it's a course of conduct directed at a specific person that causes severe emotional distress and serves no legitimate purpose.
It does serve a legitimate purpose. The guy's got a freaking video on him 24 hours a day.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So I don't know how the cops can just show up and arrest somebody.
Well, they didn't just show up and arrest.
That's a civil thing.
They got an arrest warrant from a judge.
It's a civil matter, isn't it?
Well, there was a civil matter going with the same judge, actually. Okay. But you got to understand. The deputy.
The judge had to be pissed off about something. There must have been something going on in the civil case.
No, the judge didn't even. I don't think the judge even knew it was the same thing.
I mean, I'm going to sign an arrest warrant because there's white noise.
No, because it's alleged.
That's almost like me playing my music, right? And having a neighbor complain about it all the time, and then they file a civil action, but I'm still playing my music and have the cops come and arrest me.
Well, if you're violating a noise ordinance, maybe. Okay, but here's the thing. Anyway, it's a misdemeanor case. It took the prosecutor 45 days to actually charge my guy.
So they arrested him. They put a bond. What was his bond? Do you know?
$2,500.
Okay.
But they arrested him at 9:15 at night, where he can't get a bond.
They made him spend the night in jail.
Yeah, spend the night in jail. Which I've been to the jail a bunch of times, but they always let me leave. Okay, when I want to leave.
I'm glad you clarified.
So I'm pretty sure that my whole attitude about jail would change if they say no, you can't leave.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So anyway, we get to where the judge is trying. The judge in the misdemeanor case is trying to get me to waive speedy trial, and I ain't doing it because they already wasted 45 days. I get about 4 gigabytes of stuff from the prosecutor's office in discovery.
Is this going to be a happy ending?
Well, don't know yet. But
can you at least give me a temporary happy ending?
I do a motion to dismiss on the criminal case, and the state or the judge dismisses it because there was a legitimate purpose, because he was being recorded. Okay. Now, then we have a trial.
Okay.
Now, back in January,
so he should have never been arrested. Is the point?
I don't think he should have ever been arrested. No, I think he was mischarged, but there's nothing you can do about that. In February of 2024,
wow, that's scary to me, man.
He had a
Can you imagine what it'd be like for someone like you or I or anybody in this room to get arrested and make it to the front page of the paper? People can assume all kinds of crap.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I mean, you make it up on the website, and now your picture's there.
Oh yeah.
Over a
we don't have the website anymore.
Oh, we don't?
No, they took it down.
They did.
They said there's a problem with it, and they took it down.
So now you can get arrested without your picture on the website?
Well, they might fix it. I don't know what the problem is. Anyway, so a year ago, back in February of 2024, a neighbor helped the light guy put louvers on the lights to help direct the light down and away from, so it wouldn't cross over that fence or whatever, just to help with things. And then that night, he flew his drone to take pictures of the lights to see where it was going.
Right.
And the neighbor found out and went nuts. It was taking video. You can't really tell where the drone is. And they said,
but as you just said already, well, that would help your case a lot.
They go running over to the friend's house and threaten him. They trespass on the friend's property to scream at him about it.
Well, see, that's arrestable there.
What is?
Please tell me that it's a real word.
Oh, I did look it up. It is a real word.
It is a real word?
Yes.
Thank you. I didn't want to keep you. I mean, it's one thing to use it, once, but to keep using it wrong.
Use it away.
Okay.
So the Saturday, 2 Saturdays ago, the Saturday before a trial, I go to the place, and this is in Clay County, so it's not nobody around here. But I go to the client's house, and I fly my drone to get some good pictures because we're having trial, and I want pictures. Pictures, 1,000 words, right?
Yeah, you just wanted to play.
Well, I fly my drone. I have a reason. Okay. Anyway, so I take some daytime pictures, then I come back and take nighttime pictures, and I put my drone in here. I can't even see it. Okay. But the neighbor could. Okay. So I take my
night
pictures.
Vision or something?
I don't. It's got a little light on it, but it's not blinking lights like it should be, but they fly less than 400 feet. Okay.
So it doesn't have to be blinking.
Well, it probably should be. But anyway, the
Spoken like a true attorney.
Yeah, well, anyway, so I take pictures from the air showing where the light's going, and I'm, might be on over the neighbor's property a little bit, but like I can
you
see
just told
anything.
me it doesn't matter.
Not really. You just
Now,
can't.
see,
Okay, but
don't,
okay.
can you not
can't
say
intrude-
it not really? When I just asked you earlier
Okay,
that
you
if a
cannot-
drone's flying over somebody's house, that there's nothing illegal
Okay,
about that.
There's nothing illegal about that.
But then why'd you say not
can't
really?
Intrude on people's seclusion. Okay? If you're somebody who wants to maybe sunbathe in your backyard,
Nude.
whatever, and you put up screens, okay, you're behind a fence or whatever, and then somebody flies over. It's one thing to fly over, it's another thing to fly over and say, hey, look at that, okay, and hover while you're taking pictures. That's a different thing.
What's different then?
Okay, but here's the thing. Well, people are allowed to have their privacy.
Well, I
But if
thought
you
you
just
could
fly
not
over-
fly a drone over somebody's house, is what I thought.
No.
I thought you didn't have the rights
you
to
can-
invade upon somebody's privacy when you're in the privacy of your own home or your own yard. Now I know in public places you can't say jack
That's
diddly,
true, but
in
here's
your
the
privacy
thing.
of your house, you have a fly drone. And you start flying that drone, and it looks like you can look down on his property. I would think that that's a violation of his privacy, and you're telling me it's not.
I'm saying you got to be careful, but it's not.
What you're saying is
you
you're
have
not
a right to
giving me.
be there.
Okay.
Okay, what are you doing there? Are you just flying over? Are you flying and taking a bunch of pictures about what people are doing that are in their backyard doing whatever?
Okay.
Okay, but it's dark. You
Okay.
can't see a thing. You can see some lights. Okay. Anyway, we get the drone down. I'm talking to my client in the pole barn, and all of a sudden his phone goes off, and it's his Ring camera from the front door, and the two deputies there.
Whoa. Back up. You're flying your drone,
I flew my drone.
and then the deputies,
The deputies showed up at his
after you
yeah,
flew your drone.
right, because they called. Okay.
Okay.
Now, good. We get to talk to the law
So
enforcement.
you're there when this happens.
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
And so the deputies come walking
Picture on
back,
the paper.
and I said, they say, you know why we're here? And I think somebody said drone. I said, I'm the one that flew the drone. I am their attorney. We have a trial on Wednesday, and I'm getting picture evidence for the trial. And then the deputies were so happy. This is finally going to be over.
They're tired of it.
You don't understand. I had when somebody gets called to go out, when a deputy gets called to go out, they generate they call it a CAD. Okay, I think computer aided dispatch is what it stands for.
What am I saying? Again, this is Land Title Talk. You can text your questions or comments here at 904-501-4481, 904-501-4481. And Julie just looked up too, and I appreciate that, Julie, that as long as you're 400 feet above a person's house, you're safe. If you're under 400 feet, I think you're in violation.
You're not in violation.
Level over a home.
Well, the point is most people who fly don't fly over 400 feet because you can't.
What do you mean you can't? It's illegal.
Well, if you're not licensed with a specific FAA license.
So the point is, if you're a private
Up to.
if you're a private drone flyer, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
Is that a word? Look it up.
you're not flying over somebody's house. You shouldn't.
Well, I'm not
Because
really
you
flying,
can't be above
But what
400
I'm
feet.
doing is I'm getting evidence for a trial.
But you never went into their house, over their yard.
Not really. I mean, there's a,
Not
okay,
really.
we're
Really.
okay. Looking up in the sky.
You know,
where the property line is?
if I used that with you, you would fly all over me.
Well, okay. with
Every
my
pun
drone.
intended.
Okay, but where's the property line up there? Can
I
see
get it. I
Okay?
get it. I get it. Okay, so what did the cops do? They just said, "We're glad you're
They
there."
were so happy.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
They were so happy. Anyway, and I showed them the pictures I took. Oh, they were so happy.
Good.
So we had the trial, and what the big deal with this nuisance stuff is reasonable person standard. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, define that. They're not in a platted subdivision,
oh no, well they are in a platted subdivision.
Are they really?
It's just on a dirt road, and there's a 500-foot lot line.
but there's no covenants restrictions really.
I don't think so. It's rustic country living.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I love it when you say I don't think so, because again, if the roles were reversed, You would fly all over me if I use that terminology.
Now I start cross-examining you. Find out what you do know. But anyway, we had an interesting trial, and it's the thing that's weird is some of the things that the wife said. Because remember, reasonable person standard. Okay, she testified that my guy not only threatened to shoot her dog, but cut holes in the fence, in the wire fence, so the dog could get over on their side, on my guy's side, and so he could shoot him. Okay. She testified, and I cross-examined her on that, and she doubled down. Then she testified that my guy shot a firearm at her. And I cross-examined her on that, and she doubled down. When I cross-examined her husband, he didn't think that happened. Basically,
what do you do in a situation? And I don't mean to get off track, because I know we're talking about, this nuisance topic. That is a scary thing. When somebody accuses you of something and there's no evidence of that, what kind of protection do you have under the law? Because it becomes he said, she said.
I know. But here's the other thing,
what do you do in that situation?
They called the law when my guy was playing a movie in his backyard, projecting onto a nice big screen he made. Mm-hmm. And he has a stereo. It's not a small stereo, okay? But it was projecting the other direction. They called the law on that.
Please show up and shut it down.
They called the law because my guy was singing in his backyard. They called the law. Yet,
no, I'd hate to make a judgment call, but these people need a life.
But supposedly,
I'm thinking they need a lot with more acreage. You know, a realtor.
Supposedly, my guy shot a gun at her, and nobody called the law.
They'll call the law for these noises, but then she claims that he shot a gun at her, but didn't call the law. I get that, and that would probably that probably helps you.
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and
but it's a scary
this lady
thing.
Testified that the sound of the aluminum bats hitting the baseball made her head hurt.
By the way, that's pretty obnoxious.
Well, but we're talking about people hitting inside of a pole barn behind a net. Okay, and we're talking about there's a fence in between.
Yeah. But Rusty, it is a scary thing when someone accuses you of something.
My guy got arrested.
I mean, that's scary.
For an Alexa speaker 6 inches tall. Okay.
Not everybody can afford an attorney, but their best bet, if you get arrested like that, should you not call an attorney right away? Or what are your rights in that situation? What do you do when a cop comes to your door and or at least in your heart, it's just freaking bogus crap?
If they have an arrest warrant, you surrender immediately.
And if they don't?
Well, I wouldn't leave my house.
What do they say? Please step outside the door.
I say, you have a warrant.
That's a little bit important information. If an officer came to my door and said, Mr. Collins,
please come outside. No.
We have continued complaints against you disturbing the peace. You're aggravating your neighbor behind you. And we need you to step outside and talk to us.
No.
Wow.
You step outside, they can grab you. They can't come in your house.
Wow. And
frankly, I'd give me a Ring doorbell camera if you're worried about that kind of stuff, because
I'm not worried about it, but I'm saying it's an interesting point though.
But for
people to know.
But the question is,
and we're supposed to get along with, we want to be accommodating to the law, especially if we're law-abiding citizens.
Right.
Yeah. But holy crap, man.
People do. They call our office all the time. People are accused of stuff all the time. And anyone can complain about something. But then the question is, do you have the resources, and does your side of the story ever come out? Sometimes it doesn't.
So if they don't have a arrest warrant, though, then
they have to have probable cause to arrest you. So if you talk to them, you may say something stupid.
So what do you do in that? So let's we're in the situation. Cops come knocking on my door. Mr. Collins, step outside the door. What do you say?
Call my brother Rusty.
Okay, I don't have a brother Rusty. I don't have a lawyer brother, which you're right, because that's what I would do.
Okay, so you do now. Okay, cops are allowed to come to your door and knock. It's called a knock and talk, just like anybody else can, right?
Right.
It's not a violation of the Fourth Amendment to come knock on your door.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. Maybe they say they saw something when they looked inside. They gave him some probable cause to come in.
Okay.
Then it's, your word versus theirs.
All right.
Okay.
That's going to be a hard
After
thing to
you've been
fix.
handcuffed and tased or whatever, okay, depending on how much of a fight
I
you
am
put up.
not getting tased because I do not want to wet myself. I just don't.
Okay,
That's
and
something
then-
that's not on my
but,
list of things I
you know,
want to do in life.
But if you, a lot of, there's a whole lot of video out there of law enforcement officers sticking their foot in the door because you really can't slam the door on their foot. That'd be a battery of a
Nor
law
would you do that.
enforcement
You just step away from the door. Could they grab you?
they can't really grab you, but if you walk away from the door and it's open, they might think that is an invitation.
No. If I'm standing, if I'm just keeping myself away from the front door,
Mhm.
I mean, I'm there, and I say, please don't come in.
That doesn't mean much sometimes.
Okay, but as long as I don't step out,
My recommendation is have video everywhere,
just videotape the
everything.
Will
I mean-
will that Ring camera, the Ring door camera, help
They
as
they
it picks
do
up the video?
they
do they
capture,
act
but remember
differently?
they only run for so long.
hmm
Okay, or they have to be, they steal enough, they turn off. But there's a whole lot of things. Anyway, my client, we had a good trial. I think I might have been able to show that the neighbor's crazy. And then is what my client is doing a reasonable use of his property, and that becomes the decision for the court. And even though they had a bunch of other stuff, they were arguing about, the judge, when we got done, said, all I care about is this: lights, noise. That's it. So those are the two reasonable things. And it bothers me that you live out in the middle of, Middleburg, okay, and we're talking about,
middle of Middleburg.
yeah, well, it's actually the west side of Middleburg, and on a big piece of property, it's like 500 by 150 feet, okay, a couple, acre and a half or something, and you can't play a video on a screen at night.
Right.
Now, see, their noise
Yeah.
ordinance over there kind of stinks, because if the neighbors don't like it, we could be in the middle of the day playing music while I'm mowing my lawn. Not that I mow my lawn.
So that's the noise ordinance there. Is that strict?
Yeah, where here there's a time.
I can't remember what the officers told us when they came banging on
It
that.
was 8 or 9
plaza.
o'clock or something.
No, it was 10, Rusty.
10? Okay.
Yeah. And they couldn't do anything. They just said, we just want to let you know someone's complaining that their pictures are rattling off their walls.
That's the base.
Yeah.
But the point is,
And then we had somebody decide to throw a brick on top of the roof.
yeah, they did. They
We're
threw
sitting there
brick-
playing. We heard this big
It
bang.
was like a big
Quasi,
hut.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't the drums, huh?
Yeah, so it was. Yeah. Now you've got no problems because everything's smaller and quieter.
That's not true.
I haven't been
No,
around.
we're blasting it full bore in our band room.
Okay.
Neighbors just like us.
Okay. Well, treat your neighbors good.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we're doing our final arguments written, and we'll get an answer here soon. The problem I see is, I think we have a very good case, so we win. Then what? The neighbor has used they've used the family courts for the injunction. It didn't work. They've used the civil courts. It didn't work. They used the criminal court. It doesn't work. What now?
And they don't seem to be reasonable people. That could be a scary thing.
The neighbor's actually a probation officer, a federal probation officer. Who
What the
carries a gun.
heck? I mean, that could really escalate.
I worry about that.
I wonder if there was something that the light neighbor could have done to circumvent this.
I don't know.
I mean, I think sometimes,
I think my
and I say
guys-
sometimes only because I do believe sometimes there's nothing you can do. But sometimes I think if there's just a little bit more civility, addressed up front, you would hope.
When do you back down from something, and when
Well,
do you stand up
think,
for what's right?
that's a great question, but I see people address each other and they get their dander up right away, and I think
and I'm not a
there's-
big fan of dander.
No, I know.
Okay, I would rather make a deal. Okay, now, it's like with law enforcement. I'm not arguing with law enforcement outside of a courtroom.
Right.
Okay, and I don't like arguing with lawyers outside of a courtroom because I like the rules. I know those rules.
Right.
Okay, and they have a gun and taser.
That's your Asperger's kicking in.
Well, is that what it is? Yeah. Well, I like the safety. But that's not just a butt disease, right?
I do.
Okay. Anyway,
Again, this is, let me just interrupt you. This is Land Title Talk, where we encourage you to call in. Excuse me, not call in. Text in your real estate questions or comments at 904-501-4481, 904-501-4481. We're also going to be broadcasting this on our page, but you can also email us to Stephen@golandtitle.com. But this program is sponsored by Land Title of America, so we appreciate the opportunity to sponsor this show. We're going to have other sponsors, but right now we are the sponsors, and Land Title America has been in business since golly gee, since 1997. But we come from a long history of title people. Our father started in the title business
1979.
1979. I always say 78. 1979, and then we had our grandfather start in the business. What?
Well, it was our uncles, but our grandfather was the owner in like 1974.
Yeah, so it's been around a long time. We've ate, drank, and slept title most
We're
of our life.
part of the North Florida Title Mafia.
Yeah, I'm a North. Yeah, great, Rusty. We don't pay our claims, we bury them. Yeah, that kind of stuff. No, that's not true. But no, we've been around for a long time, and we like to help you in your real estate transactions. Our motto is stay local, because it can be pretty dangerous, and a real estate transaction is a complicated thing to be a part of, and it's good to have a title company that you can actually knock on the door, not knock on the door, but just walk in and talk to somebody in person instead of calling 1-800 who gives a crap. And so
I actually did a payoff letter for a client. She was the lender for a refinance of a St. Johns County property, or maybe it might have been Putnam. And the title company was in Ohio.
crazy stuff.
That's nuts.
Yeah, what happens when you have a problem and you seriously don't have anybody to go to. You call this number and you get the runaround. So we encourage you to stay local with your real estate transactions. And it helps you protect you a little bit against fraud too. There's a lot more to fraud than just using a local title company. But when you use out-of-town title companies, you are more susceptible to fraud. So just stay local, or we might consider you local. So, all right. But
anyway, so we'll see what happens with that.
All right. Well, that's exciting stuff.
A couple interesting things about that, though. I heard is reasonable person. Yeah. What would a reasonable person think? So if I go outside my yard and I see a guy playing his guitar in the back, maybe I should ask myself, is that reasonable or is it way too loud?
Is it reasonable use?
Right.
What would a reasonable person think?
Right. Yeah.
And then I also heard, the cameras. I like that idea because how else are you going to fight a false complaint unless you've got video? It'll just be
right.
He said, they said. Right?
And it's not that expensive to have cameras for your protection, even if it's not. I mean, Ring cameras are not.
As long as they're not zoomed into your neighbor's yard or house.
Yeah,
well, don't do that.
Most of the cameras do overshoot the fence a little bit.
Okay, I mean that's going to happen.
Yeah,
happen.
It's just interesting.
Well, we got Ben with us. Ben, tell us a little bit about your background. I find your background pretty interesting.
Oh yeah. I got a PhD in organizational leadership.
So he's Dr. Ben.
Yeah, that's true.
Dr. Ben.
But I about 6 years ago, I had a friend who asked me to come help him grow his law firm, and that turned out to be great. I really enjoyed it. I loved it, and we did. We grew the law firm until it got merged with another firm, actually. So, I enjoyed it so much. I wanted to continue doing that work, and I'm really glad I found Rusty here. And it's great that he's. And this is another thing that you mentioned, Stephen, about having Land Title America local. You also have a legal department right there in the building, which most places don't have that luxury, and it's just really a super benefit for all your clients, really. I think because it's
pretty helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a good part about it. But I have a wife and 4 kids, and live right here, not too far down the road from here. From
now
this
he comes from
office.
Fairborn, Ohio.
Yeah, originally, yeah,
close to where we used to live.
Yeah.
Back when I was a little spry.
In Beaver Creek.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been there, but I still got family around there.
You willing to talk about what you used to do?
Oh, well, I was an administrator for a long time and used to supervise and evaluate staff and everything.
What
and
type
it was
of administrator?
School administrator. Yeah.
Okay.
School administrator.
Just that?
And well, I was principal.
I wouldn't say just that.
Yeah.
You're like a principal though, weren't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Like,
and then
what's wrong with that word, by the way?
Oh, nothing.
I mean, that's a big job.
It was a huge job. We did a lot
Jackoby.
of supervision, a lot of evaluation of staff and things like that. And it was just we like what we do in our business. I had to really be careful about our contracts, and not just personnel contracts, but also contracts with vendors and things like that. So that was a big part of the job. But I love what we do now because I love the land and the title stuff. It's constant pace and moves quickly. But we really it's a good second career for me. So.
Well, we like it. We're glad you decided to join us. Again, this is Land Title Talk. Text us with your questions or comments at 904-501-4481, 904-501-4481. Let's talk a little bit about fraud, Rusty.
I don't recommend it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, fraud can happen in many different ways. I mean, obviously, real estate is where I see it primarily. But what are some other places you can see fraud?
Well, there's fraud in financial transactions. There's fraud to get into people's. What's the definition of fraud, though?
Tell me.
Well, typically the definition is saying something that's untrue or putting forth an untrue message for the purpose of getting somebody to act on it to their detriment, and then they actually act on it, and it is to their detriment.
Right.
That's the quick definition. So I've dealt with fraud in real estate transactions where a client had a property in North Beach. It was vacant land. And one year they didn't get their tax bill. And you know that back then Dennis didn't just forget to send you the bill. So they inquired, why didn't we get a tax bill? And the tax collector said, because you don't own the property anymore. And they said, we didn't sell the property. And they ended up calling me. And basically what happened, and this was a closing with a Jacksonville title company. There was a lender. In all aspects, it looks like a reasonable closing. Except the seller on the closing was on vacation.
Rusty, because our time is going to be short here, what do you do to protect yourself against fraud? And obviously I have an answer
Read
too.
stuff.
Okay, read stuff.
Protect yourself. Take reasonable precautions.
See, I'm gonna fight you on that read stuff because I don't think it doesn't matter how much you read. If you're a potential buyer of a property, let me just point this out: the things you can do to protect yourself so that you're not a victim of fraud. And I shouldn't say victim because you are a victim of fraud, but you want to protect yourself to where you have remedies. If you're exposed to fraud, in the situation of buying real estate, don't ever buy real estate without a title insurance policy. Okay.
Yeah, I can't recommend it.
No, can't recommend it. Yeah, can't do it. You shouldn't do it because in the situation of your friend or the people that came to you that their property was sold, they got their property back.
But
yes,
well, they got their property back.
The buyer, thank heavens, they had a title insurance company because that's what paid them for the loss they had.
The title insurance. The title insurers had a complete loss.
Yes, but that's part of our job.
That's right.
Our job is to be the financial seatbelt. You don't wear your seatbelt because you want to use it, but if something happens.
A complete loss because there was no way to get that money back or even find the people that got it. It is gone. It is poof.
Yeah, but the title company protects the buyer and the lender. The lender got made whole and the buyer got made whole. And I want to be careful about that word whole. They didn't get their inspection fees back.
They didn't get this was a vacant land, but still.
Or even if it wasn't vacant, they would not get their inspection fees back. They would not get, if they had plans to build a house, they wouldn't get that back. Okay. But they would at least get back what their investment in the purchase of that property.
Right. And again, but the local title companies, most of the underwriters requiring you to do some kind of buyer lock, seller lock, where they verify these.
It's not a guarantee, though.
It's not a guarantee.
No. And in the case of you as a seller or a buyer, I think using realtors helps too. Okay, there's a vetting process. If you're a seller, for heaven's sakes, you put the for sale by owner, out front and put it on Facebook. Whatever you do to market your own property, put it on Zillow. However you do that.
Everybody's going to call you.
Well, you get somebody to call you and say, "Hey, I'd love to buy your property." You don't know if they're just staking out the joint to rob you, or if they are a fraudulent buyer. Okay, all they're trying to do is give you a deposit and then have you refund the deposit and then find out the money that they gave you for the deposit was never any good. Right. Okay, so there's all kinds of things out there that I think are important for people to look out.
Well, the title companies are nobody will even take a cashier's check anymore.
We will.
Well, I know, but a lot of people won't.
We will.
Okay, and it's irritating because everybody wants a wire, and it costs money to wire money. Okay, and that just irritates me a lot. But they won't take because you can make a fraudulent cashier's check.
Yeah, man, we went to a seminar in Hollywood, Florida, and they talked to us, and I think I shared this with you, but I'll share it with everyone else. Talking about They put up two videos, an AI generated video and a real
yeah.
person. We could not tell the difference between the two. Okay. This online.
So even the video notary stuff.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. I mean, but my point is we shouldn't be afraid. What we do is just take your precautions. Don't be afraid to drive around town. Don't be afraid to drive on I-4. Just wear your freaking seatbelt. Okay. Same thing with ownership in real estate. Don't take shortcuts. I've come to realize what people value their life or what their value on their life is. And it's 6% sometimes. Just pay your 6%. They're going to protect you on the value and they're going to protect you from.
Oh, you're talking about real estate.
Yes. Yeah. Just pay the commission and have those added protections there. Because if you don't do that, you're going to be subject to some problems. Okay. Blake, I don't know this, our first show back in a long time. So I don't know when our cutoff time is, Blake. You have to tell us that. You will keep rambling forever.
You're more welcome to end it here, but it's 7:01. So if we're currently recorded after 45 minutes, so you're more than welcome to continue for 15 more minutes to reach an hour.
Wow. How about that? We'll talk forever. Thank you, Blake. But so Blake, you got to cut us off before we got to get back to being trained on how to be disciplined on our time.
Well, you got other subjects.
I got other stuff here, but the point is, I want to. We can talk about these things.
Fraud is.
I think fraud is a.
You got to take reasonable
precautions. You got to take a reasonable precaution.
You can't prevent it all. You can just see if maybe you can make it to where you can get something back.
Protect yourself.
Yeah. If it sounds too good to be true, it really is.
Sometimes. Just got to be cautious. Vet.
Everything we do has a risk.
Right.
You talk about driving, it's a risk. How do we mitigate the risk? We
Seatbelts.
pay attention. Wear our seatbelts, keep our cars maintenance. And not drive when we're super tired or impaired or whatever. Things you do to try to. You can't really stop that truck from hitting you from behind, but you might be able to mitigate some of those risks.
Right.
That's how I look at it, and you can sign up on the county's website for free.
But Rusty,
that doesn't stop something.
But
it makes you react quicker, maybe.
Okay, but you're still going to have to pay to get it fixed.
Oh,
the county's just notifying you,
right?
This is not. So they have those programs. We talked about that with Mike on his show here
a while back,
which is the closing log.
And the insurance policy.
The insurance policy, because title insurance that we issue at closing does not protect you for things that happen after closing.
And I got the property back from my client.
Yes.
I lost it.
But they had to pay you. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How much does it cost? Yeah.
Yeah, there's still a cost to it.
There's a cost to it.
So how do you protect yourself from that? And I think that there are some programs out there, or is that the right word, programs?
There are some services,
thank you, that are out there that you can pay that will not only, notify you when this may have happened, but then they have like up to $10,000 of prepaid or legal fees that they'll pay on your behalf. You just have to use their attorneys.
And that's where the benefit comes in.
That's where the benefit comes in.
I think there's a benefit because you can get the notice, hey, something happened for free.
Right. I mean, again, that's like, that's like OnStar saying, I can tell you've been in an accident. Well, no, duh.
Yeah.
No crap, Sherlock.
Well, that's right. But they're not going to call you and say, hey, you look like somebody's, stealing your car. You may want to go out and check. They can't do that until after it's happened.
Right.
So.
Right. But it's okay. I mean, it's good to know because then you can take action. If you have a piece of real estate, and let's talk about this just for real quick, because I want to know your answers. And again, we are short on time, but I want to know your answers on this. Piece of real estate owned by a family member. Okay. The family member dies and you inherit it, but it's vacant land. You're just waiting. You don't really, not paying attention. You got other properties. If somebody fraudulently sells that property, okay, to a third-party purchaser without any kind of notice of fraud, and they own it and they pay taxes on it and they possess it for 7 years, what happens?
A fraudulent deed conveys nothing.
Rusty, but they have possession. They've got a color of title. They've got a tax bill for 7 years. I disagree with you. I think after 7 years, they could actually claim ownership.
I have not seen a case on that. The only cases I know about
take a stand.
Fraudulent deed conveys
But
nothing.
none of those situations.
Because the person doesn't have notice on a fraudulent
All right,
deed.
but can you legally pirate property?
I know it has been done.
Okay.
But
So what's the difference here? If you buy a property and you don't have notice that it's fraud, and you take possession, you build a house.
But we're looking at a deed
and you
from
get
somebody. The person has to. If you get color of title,
which is
remember,
a deed,
fraudulent deed,
is still color of title.
Okay, if I sign somebody's name and it's not me, that does not give color of title. That is a fraudulent deed and conveys nothing.
Gotcha.
Now, if I do a deed as and say I'm the sole heir of Stanley B. Collins, deceased, and that goes for a while, well, there's a curative statute for that after 5
Yeah, but
years.
if I'm not really his heir,
right,
it's still fraudulent.
it is fraudulent. I think that will change things. If you get, the first thing that you have to do is somehow get on the tax bill, right?
That's my point. When you buy a property from a fraudulent seller, the property appraisers will assess that property to you.
Not always. If they can't connect the dots,
They connect the dots. Listen, on all the fraudulent cases we've been involved in, or that we've seen, that we've witnessed, the property appraisers have always assessed the property in full, in totality, to the person that the grantee on that deed.
Are we talking about where there's a family estate property?
No, I'm talking about where a fraudulent seller.
Well, they don't know anything. Yeah,
That's
don't know
right.
the difference.
So you get that tax bill as a buyer, get your title insurance, whatever. You pay taxes for 7 years. You've possessed the property. You have adverse possession. I think you win in that case.
You might.
Well,
yeah, okay. You have to understand. I'm looking at
take a chance.
number
buddy.
one. If you sit on your rights for 7 years, like, how do you not know?
That's true. This is why it's important.
Like,
this is why I think
I
what
didn't
the
get a
county's
tax bill.
well, I think what the county's doing is very important.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's happened before where family members are like, wait a minute, I thought you were paying the tax bill. No, I thought you were paying the tax bill. Wait, and they're not paying attention. 7 years goes by fast.
If
You can't. So I think
I can
there is
see that might be a thing. Now, yeah, that might give you color of title. If you get actual color of title and the person has no idea that it's not color of title, in other
right.
words, legitimately,
They
it's
did not
colored,
know it was fraud.
and the property appraiser gets snookered too,
Right.
and you pay taxes on it for 7
Take
years.
possessions.
But here's the thing: the person you have notice. The people that the true owners do have notice because they didn't get a tax bill.
That's true.
Okay,
But because they're not paying attention is not going to be
well, you
anybody's
got to
fault.
pay attention. Okay, if
Right.
you don't get a tax bill, Okay,
There's a problem. It's not a happy day.
Okay.
I didn't get a tax bill.
Okay,
You must have forgot.
I have to
Everybody
pay
who owns-
taxes. No,
everybody-
that's a sign.
Everybody who owns real estate or has an interest in real estate knows or deemed to know that they have to pay taxes.
Right.
If you don't get a tax bill, I don't think the tax collector forgot to send you a bill. Okay.
Or
Now-
some just guy went out there and paid it for you because they felt
Yeah.
bad for you.
Right. That doesn't happen. So something's wrong. And if you're going to sit on your rights, again, one of the reasons we have adverse possession laws is to help property be sellable.
Right.
And if you sit on your rights long enough, you're going to lose them.
So and what you mean by sit on your rights, it means to not
If you ignore
act
it,
on your rights, ignore it.
if you ignore it, it will go away.
Yeah. And that 7-year statute is, this is not hyperbole now. This
No,
is
it's 7 years. There's a
Yeah,
statute.
it's 7 years.
There's 7 years, but 6 years, 364 days you could lose.
that's right.
Okay. But
Got to be 7 years.
7 years. And it's an adverse possession statute we're talking about.
Well, we're going to talk more about this kind of stuff next week. Actually, Rusty, you're going to be by yourself next week, so you have to make sure you have a good guest. I've got to go and play music at the Pier, Music by the Sea, which is a great event, by the way. They're doing that tonight, and so hopefully y'all are out there supporting Music by the Sea. It's a great event, great public social event, which we hope you support and go out there and hear some great music. But we'll be there next week, which is, what's my date on that? Is that the 11th, June 11th, Julie?
Yes.
June 11th. So come on out and hear our band play some music. And also, we'll be playing music this Saturday at Brillo's. No, it's Uptown Pizza now.
Uptown Pizza.
That's right. Brillo's Pizza is no longer. It's called Uptown Pizza at the old Brillo's Pizza joint there at the Beer and Wine Garden. And so our band will be playing there at 6:30. Come on out and have some fun with us and enjoy some great food and great music. But this has been Land Title Talk, and we love it. And Rusty will be here next week, and we'll make sure you have a good guest. And holy horrors, Batman. I like to keep him on a leash, and when I'm not here, it makes me scared.
I'll probably bring some attorney friends with me.
Oh, heavens.
I've got some things in the works.
Yes. Yeah, we might help curb that a little bit. You always have an open seat.
That's
So
right.
even though we invite a guest, Rusty, you can always add somebody too that you want to stir it up and make it a little more interesting. So we really enjoy this evening. It's fun to be back. And again, the number Land Title of America, the sponsor of this show, is 904-797-9600. 904-797-9600. Insuring America's land one title at a time. We've been in business since 1997 and actually been involved in the business for quite some time. Just goes to show you that
Once you get in, you can't get out.
you can't get out.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me along tonight.
We're
It's
glad
been real
to have
fun.
you, Ben,
Real fun.
and appreciate your input, and we hope to have you back. And we got all kinds of more fun questions for Rusty. Rustolin, we affectionately call him. But thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again in 1 week. Thanks.